The Democrats in Congress are feeling the heat now. The Republicans are united against the President Obama's nuclear deal with Iran, and the public is skeptical of it as well. So will the Democrats support the president, or will they stand with Israel against the deal?
Secretary of State John Kerry went before Congress to defend the plan, but he ran into some very strong opposition. Charlene Aaron has the story.
Secretary of State John Kerry faced tough questions from members of both parties in the House hearing.
Let me underscore, the alternative to the deal that we have reached is not some kind of unicorn fantasy that contemplates Iran's complete capitulation.
In a tense exchange at times, Kerry, Energy Secretary Ernest Moniz, and Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew defended the deal between Iran and 6 nations, aimed at preventing Iran from building a nuclear weapon. Kerry was hoping to coax skeptical lawmakers into supporting the nuclear pact. He warned that walking away would send the wrong message internationally.
If we walk away alone. Our partners are not going to be with us.
But lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have expressed concerns about the details of the agreement, with many questioning if Iran will actually live up to the deal.
Iran has cheated on every agreement they've signed. So I ask, Mr. Secretary, has Iran earned the right to be trusted?
With Republicans basically united in their opposition to the plan, the president is looking to Democrats for support, but many are skeptical, especially since Israel is 100% opposed to it. House Foreign Affairs ranking Democratic member Elliot Engel of New York said he was very disappointed with the agreement.
I have a fundamental concern that 15 years from now, Iran will essentially be off the hook.
But the White House is working hard to get Democrats to approve the deal, with the president personally meeting with and calling Democratic lawmakers to ask for their support. Congress is set to vote on the bill in mid-September, and with much of the public skeptical of the deal, the pressure is expected to intensify on both sides. President Obama has threatened to veto any move to reject the plan. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
You wonder what the president wants so desperately to get this thing done. Iran is a terrorist state. It is a theocratic state that oppresses its own people. It has been the major sponsor of terrorism around the world. And the blood of our soldiers is on their hands. And now in this deal, one of the things is the head of the Quds force, they want to give complete amnesty to whatever sanctions have been held against him. They want to open up, probably it'll be $200 billion of funds that have been embargoed in these sanctions. Suddenly that'll be released to the Iranians so they can go buy more arms. They can give more money to Hezbollah and Hamas and their other proxies. And in addition to that, they have said openly and repeatedly they want the destruction of Israel. What kind of a negotiating partner is this? And why is the president so absolutely intent on forcing it and then going on radio or television and saying there's no credible opposition against this, there's nobody can point to any problems or any flaws in this agreement? Well, there are plenty of flaws in it, and he knows it. Well, while the Obama administration has been defending its nuclear deal with Iran, something else has happened in Washington on Tuesday, a rally against Planned Parenthood. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Here's Ephraim.
Pat, the rally in Washington was just one of dozens across the country as thousands of women came together to demand an end to federal funding for Planned Parenthood.
Horrified at the things that I heard about fellow OBGYNs talking so callously about ripping babies apart, but doing it in a way to preserve organs that could potentially bring money in.
Presidential hopefuls also spoke out against that rally in Washington.
There comes a time in the history of nations when we will all be judged on whether or not we took a stand for life. Now is that time. This callous disregard expressed over wine and cheese should inflame and infuriate us all, and we should stop once and for all any penny of money going to Planned Parenthood.
Today, the U.S. Department of Justice should open a criminal investigation into whether Planned Parenthood nationally is a criminal enterprise breaking the law.
The Senate also plans to vote on defending Planned Parenthood before its August recess, which begins at the end of next week. National statistics show that 1 out of 6 women have faced rape in their lifetime. Another troubling fact, 98% of their attackers never spend a day in jail or in prison. As Abigail Robertson reports, that's because evidence has been sitting in bundles known as rape kits, gathering dust in police labs and storage rooms across the country. Until now.
Overwhelmed crime labs, lack of money, and a reluctance to believe rape victims contribute to a nationwide problem. Thousands of untested rape kits, almost 10,000 alone in the state of Ohio.
We owed it to these rape victims to test these.
In 2011, Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine pledged to test all the kits, a move that has generated action. As of May, close to 80% of the untested kits had been analyzed. The results? More than 2,700 DNA matches and 300 arrests, resulting in 79 convictions. On average, each person matched has been linked to 10 crimes, and almost 30% are serial rapists. One of these predators is Dwayne Wilson. Serving time for another charge, Wilson was just 23 days from freedom when a DNA test linked him to a sexual crime spree. 20 years earlier, Wilson had raped multiple victims, often while holding a knife to their throats.
You snatched women off the street, you took them somewhere else, and you raped them. And you raped them viciously.
Prosecutor Mary Weston credits the discovery to finally testing the rape kits.
It is the only reason that we caught Dwayne Wilson for these crimes.
Lisa Bridget's attacker, Andrew Getson, lived freely for years.
After I was raped, I was broken. That man broke me. And it took years and years and years for God to fix me.
2 decades later, results from her long-neglected kit led to Getson's conviction.
When it came to me with this, it's like my life stopped. It stopped. It's like opening up a wound and pouring a lot of salt on it.
Detroit prosecutor Kim Worthy calls the testing debacle a nationwide embarrassment.
It shows that we as this country do not respect rape victims to the extent that we respect other victims.
There's new hope that more victims will see justice. Last year, Congress approved $41 million to go towards testing neglected rape kits across the country. Each kit has the potential to bring long-awaited closure to victims like Lisa and many others. Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abigail. Pat, it is good to see this happen, but so sad it's taken so long.
You know, a woman is raped. It's a horrible experience, traumatized. And then she has to go through the invasive procedure, sometimes takes hours, to get all those microscopic specks and all those hairs and all the things that go along with a rape, and put it together in what they call a rape kit that indicates the DNA of the attacker. And that should be probative in terms of getting a conviction. But to think that states just take these things after they have essentially violated a woman a second time and put them in some kind of a storage locker is just appalling. So I salute Attorney General Mike DeWine. He's a great guy, and Ohio for what they're doing. But it shouldn't be just Ohio. It should be the whole nation. Let's use this evidence and put those rapists where they ought to be, behind bars. Well, as somebody else that's been behind bars, I've been championing the cause of this man for several decades. It is my feeling that Aldrich Ames was the mole in the CIA who outed a number of our key operatives around the world and led to the death of many brave American servants who were undercover in foreign countries. But whatever it was all blamed on Jonathan Pollard, who was convicted of spying from Israel. And the thing about Jonathan Pollard was, it seemed like they were trying to drive him crazy. They put him in extraordinarily onerous conditions, deprived him of all kinds of sensory stimulus, didn't feed him. It was just awful what they did to him. And then they give him a 30-year sentence. Well, apparently, that is now finally being lifted. We've tried and tried and tried in the State Department. There are people in the intelligence community that just absolutely assert Pollard is the devil himself, and they don't want to let him go. But it looks like by November, his condition will change. And here's Ephraim with more about that story.
Pat, Jonathan Pollard, the American citizen serving a life sentence for passing hundreds of classified documents to Israel, will be released, as you said, in November. Israel has long pressed for his release, and some U.S. administrations have tried to use him as a bargaining chip in peace talks with the Palestinians. Pollard's supporters say he only tried to help a U.S. ally, while critics charge he risked U.S. foreign policy for money. The Obama administration says Pollard's release is not an attempt to do Israel a favor because of its opposition to the nuclear deal with Iran. Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of 4 of the earliest leaders of the English colony that would become America. They were buried for more than 400 years near the altar of what was America's first Protestant church in Jamestown, Virginia. The team identified the remains of the 4 men, including Reverend Robert Hunt, the first Anglican minister of Jamestown.
We did find skeletal remains within 4 burials. We could tell that right away that in 2 of them, the head of the person was buried facing towards the east, or on the east end of the burial. And that's traditionally reserved for clergymen.
And historian James Horn, the president of the Jamestown Rediscovery Foundation, said, "What we have discovered here in the earliest English church in America are 4 of the first leaders of America. There's nothing like it anywhere else in this country." And Pat, I understand you have great and personal interest in this story.
Well, there's some connection, we believe, to Robert Hunt, who was the spiritual leader of the Jamestown colony. And if that was Reverend Hunt in that grave, how nice to see that his remains are being given the appropriate veneration or whatever you do for him.
So there is a family connection there.
Well, there's some thought that that's the case. Yes, that's right. My ancestors, I'm a member of the Jamestown Society. Our ancestors were involved in the early days in Virginia, and Hunt was he was the chaplain of the colony.